Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's to cut through all the noise around learning English. We want to give you a really clear roadmap. We've synthesized this entirely from the material you sent us. So if you've ever felt, just overwhelmed by the grammar rules, endless vocabulary, all those practice methods, this deep dive is definitely for you. We're decoding the strategies that are truly actionable, focusing completely on the habits and those mental shifts that really move the needle towards mastering English.
Yeah, that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So common, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sources really drive that home. Learning a new language, and especially English, with its global reach and all its tricky bits, it can feel like you're standing at the bottom of this huge mountain. But what's really powerful about the accounts we looked at, these personal stories, people detailing their own struggles, especially trying to make speaking English a daily habit, is the message of hope. It's quite encouraging.
Hope, right?
Yeah, they show success isn't really about brute force or being some kind of genius. It's more about setting up clear, small paths, encouraging ones. We'll really focus on that shift, moving from seeing English as just another subject to study, to seeing it as something woven into your everyday life.
Absolutely. And moving beyond just theory, right, into how you actually do it. So we've structured this deep dive into three main parts. First, we're going to break down the 4 key skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and look at how the sources suggest, linking them together for the best results. Second, we'll get into the practical stuff, the tools, the techniques for total immersion, making the language stick. And finally, and this is crucial, we're going to spend a good amount of time on the mental game, motivation, consistency, resilience. What keeps you going long term?
Definitely. And maybe before we jump into all the mechanics, let's just anchor this with something important from the source material. A lot of learners, when they first started, felt this real sense of anxiety, even fear, actually, especially about speaking out loud.
Yeah, that fear is a big one.
It is. And one learner shared this insight that the fear, this kind of resistance they felt, it only started to fade when they embraced something pretty simple. Just listening. Consistently listening, without putting pressure on themselves. It's a great reminder, I think, that the journey can start gently. You get familiar with the sounds first before you even try to speak.
Okay, let's unpack that then, straight into the core of it.
Yeah.
The 4 pillars of practice. The sources couldn't be clearer on this. Success really hinges on making these 4 things part of your daily habit. Constant engagement.
Right. And we start quite fittingly with listening. This is, fundamentally, it's the main way language gets absorbed. It's how your brain builds up its internal map of sounds, rhythm, structure.
So not just words.
Not just words, no. You hear new words, sure. But even more importantly, it's how you start to decode the flow of English. The stress patterns in sentences, that tricky connected speech where words kind of run together.
Yeah, like, what are you going to do instead of what are you going to do?
Exactly like that. And intonation, too, how the pitch changes meaning. Listening is where you pick all that up.
That's a really important distinction. We often just think listen more, learn more words, but you're saying it's much deeper. It's about the sound system itself. And the sources seem to give 2 key actions here. First, just making it a daily thing everywhere. And second, moving from just hearing it to actively listening over time.
Precisely. Initially, just listen. Every day. Could be simple stories, songs you like, maybe slow news reports. Exposure is the key at first. Turning what might sound like noise into something recognizable. Sound patterns.
And that personal story you mentioned earlier fits right in here.
Perfectly. This person listened to English stories every single day. At first, just noise, basically. Indecipherable. But they kept at it. And slowly, the brain starts to, segment the sounds, figure out where words begin and end. And as that happened, the fear started to go down. The language just felt less alien.
See, consistency is the magic ingredient there.
It really is. That daily habit turns passive hearing into active learning. The words become clear, distinct, and that builds the foundation for everything else that follows. It ties directly into that idea of comprehensible input, doesn't it? You need exposure to language you mostly understand, using context or pictures to guess the rest. Listening does that naturally.
Okay, so once you've got that sound base starting to form, the next step is rating. And the sources seem to stress this not just for, understanding content, but specifically for boosting vocabulary and understanding structure.
Yes, and the advice to start is wonderfully practical. Start simple. Use visuals. Books with pictures are great because they help you understand, even if the text is a bit tricky.
Like scaffolding.
Exactly. That visual link helps your brain connect the English word directly to the concept, sort of bypassing the need to translate it back into your native language first. That's key for building automaticity, making it faster.
And the benefits seem layered. You learn new words, obviously. But more than that, you see how they work, where they sit in a sentence, how they connect with prepositions, how ideas are built up. It's like structural detective work.
Huh. Yeah, reconnaissance, maybe. And there's that specific example in the material that really shows this working, the simple story about a lost cat.
Ah, yes, I remember that one.
It's a great example of learning in context. Very basic story, right? But because the content was relatable and probably a bit repetitive, it let the learner naturally pick up new words. They just kept seeing them used in the story.
Through repetition within the narrative.
Exactly. So the main takeaway is read a lot consistently. Even simple stuff, as long as it's maybe slightly challenging but not totally overwhelming. Your English just gets better. It's incremental, but it builds up steadily.
Okay, now for the active part. Production, writing and speaking. This feels like where many learners really hit a wall, right? Going from just taking language in to actually putting it out under pressure.
It definitely can be a hurdle. And here, consistency is just paramount, absolutely essential.
Let's start with writing. Why is that so crucial?
Well, writing acts like a sort of low-pressure lab. It forces you to take the words you know and actually combine them, practice sentence structures, but without the stress of someone waiting for you to reply immediately.
Like a practice run.
Kind of.
Mm.
And the advice is simple. Start small. Write about your day. Describe your family. Write down your dreams. Anything. It doesn't have to be perfect English prose. The goal is just to use the language actively.
And there was that detail about using a small notebook for daily writing.
Yes, that was a powerful habit. The learner admitted, they made loads of mistakes, and that's the key lesson here. They expected to make mistakes, learn from them privately, and that built a huge amount of confidence. Writing gives you time to sort of manipulate the language, solidify the vocabulary and grammar you've picked up. It's a really important stepping stone before you have to use it spontaneously in conversation.
Which brings us to the big one. Speaking. The sources are really clear on this, aren't they? You just have to do it.
Unanimous on that. The absolute imperative is speak English every day. Practice doesn't just make perfect, it literally builds the connections in your brain for faster recall. Even if you know you're making mistakes, you have to keep vocalizing.
Okay, easy to say. But that fear of sounding silly, of being corrected publicly, it's huge for many learners. What specific mindset shift did the sources suggest to help people get over that hump? Because that feels like the biggest barrier to making speaking a habit.
Yeah, they tackle that fear directly. And what's really fascinating is the emphasis they put on reframing mistakes. They're not seen as failures or something embarrassing.
No.
No, they're explicitly pointed out as the best teachers, the most immediate ones you can get. The thinking is, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably just staying in your comfort zone. You're not pushing yourself enough to learn quickly.
Interesting. So mistakes are actually a sign of progress.
Exactly. The mental shift is realizing that a mistake gives you the fastest possible feedback. You say something wrong, maybe someone corrects you, maybe you just notice it yourself later, and your memory locks onto the correct way much more strongly than if you just read it somewhere.
That reframing is powerful. It changes speaking from being a performance where you have to be perfect to being more like an experiment.
Precisely. Which is vital if you want to make speaking English a consistent daily habit like the sources really push for.
Yeah.
You have to force yourself to produce language every day, even if it's just talking to yourself about the weather or narrating what you're doing while you cook dinner.
Okay, so we've covered the 4 pillars. Now, moving beyond those fundamentals, the sources offer this great toolkit of strategies, ways to make English just unavoidable in your daily life, real immersion techniques, even if you can't travel.
Yes, this is where we shift from the core skills to actively absorbing the language all around you. And media consumption plays a huge role here, absorbing natural language in a pretty low-stress way.
Like watching TV shows or movies.
Absolutely. Watching English videos, cartoons, films, series. It's presented not just as entertainment, but it's a really effective learning tool. You learn correct usage, context, pronunciation, all through examples. And often the pictures help you figure out what's going on.
Right, the visual context.
And a good tip for beginners is watching something you already know in your own language.
Yeah.
If you know the plot, you can focus more on how they're saying things in English, the sentence structures, the vocabulary.
That cartoon example in the material was quite vivid. Watching a funny cartoon about a dog.
Yeah, and learning new words instantly because the visuals made them totally clear. They weren't just reading a definition. They saw the word used in context. That's passive entertainment turning into active learning, especially if you made a habit of maybe repeating phrases or jotting down words to look up later.
And it's not just watching, right? Listening to.
Definitely. Listening to English radio, podcasts. The key is finding stuff you're genuinely interested in. Cooking, science, history, whatever. It's brilliant practice for listening skills at normal speed. You get used to the natural pace of conversation, the specific words people use for different topics, how native speakers actually form sentences quickly. Regular listening just keeps that input stream constant and varied.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. The idea of creating a full immersion environment, but without leaving your house. How do the sources suggest you actually do that?
It's about systematically surrounding yourself with English. And, importantly, accepting that it might feel a bit awkward or slow you down at first.
What kind of things?
Practical, immediate changes. Switch your phone's language setting to English. Change your social media feeds. Start reading signs or labels around your house in English. Make a conscious effort to listen to English music or audiobooks when you're commuting or doing chores. It's about using the technology and environment you already have to force daily interaction.
That story about changing the phone language really highlights that initial friction, doesn't it?
It does. The learner said, yeah, it slowed them down at first. They had to stop and figure out settings they used to tap automatically. But because they had to use their phone dozens of times a day.
You pretty much have to learn it.
Exactly. They quickly got used to the new words, the commands. They were learning something new every time they picked up their phone. That consistent, forced interaction creates this rapid, almost unavoidable learning curve.
So this proactive immersion, it needs support tools too, right? The sources mentioned the dictionary and flashcards.
Yes, and not just as props. They're described as tools for really deep vocabulary retention.
How so with the dictionary? More than just looking up words.
Much more. It's described as your friend for understanding the whole picture of a word. The advice isn't just find the meaning. It's check the pronunciation, look at the example sentences, maybe even note down synonyms or related words to build a sort of mental network around that word.
Build connections.
Right. And the absolutely crucial step, right after you look up a word, is to try and use it immediately. Make up your own sentence using it. That jump from just recognizing it to actively producing it. That's the fast track to making it stick.
And flashcards. Still useful.
Indispensable, according to the sources, but maybe used in a smarter way. Not just word on one side, translation on the other. They suggest using them to test grammar, to like different verb tenses or making small sentence prompts. And crucially, carry them everywhere. Use them frequently, especially using methods like spaced repetition systems, SRS.
Ah, the apps that show you the word just before you forget it.
Exactly those. They ensure you review words at the optimal time for moving them from just learned into your long-term memory. It's about structured, consistent review.
Okay, so we've got immersion tools. But language is ultimately about communication. The sources must emphasize active application and social practice, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the ultimate goal. You can't master a social tool like language just by studying it alone. You have to use it socially.
How feeling? Finding people.
Yes. Finding friends who speak English, maybe joining a conversation club, or finding language exchange partners online. The huge benefit here, the thing you can't get from a book, is immediate feedback. Real-time correction and practice in situations that feel like real life.
There is that example of someone having a friend who corrected them.
Yeah, having a friend who would gently correct mistakes during just normal daily chats, that apparently sped up their learning dramatically. It creates this personalized, instant feedback loop. It's not formal teaching, just a helpful friend, a non-judgmental partner who gives you the right word or phrase right when you need it. That really solidifies the learning.
And that practice needs to extend beyond friends, too, into real-world situations.
Definitely. Using English in real situations is key. If you travel, or even if you just meet tourists in your city, you have to try and use the language. Even if it's just a few basic words or a simple phrase you practiced, it's not about having a complex debate right away. It's about building confidence, successfully navigating those small interactions, ordering coffee, asking for directions, simple small talk. Every time you manage one, it boosts your confidence and reinforces the habit of actually speaking English.
It's clear that learning a language isn't just about grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's so much about the mind game, isn't it? Resilience, attitude. The sources really stress this psychological side. So what does that mean for how a learner should approach it, focusing on the process?
Exactly. Focusing on the journey, the continuous process, not just dreaming about some far-off destination of fluency. And the two foundational concepts here are patience and self-kindness.
Patience, because it takes time.
A long time. The sources are really clear. Learning is not a straight line upwards, and it definitely doesn't happen overnight or even in a few months for most people. You have to keep reminding yourself that every little step forward counts, and you absolutely have to keep going, even when it feels frustratingly slow or difficult. The message is repeated often. Don't give up, but accept that growth takes time, like, planting a seed.
And self-kindness, for when you hit those frustrating plateaus.
Yes. For when you feel stuck or you forget something you learned yesterday, that's when you need to be kind to yourself. Recognize that learning puts a huge load on your brain. Some days will just be harder than others. The material actually recommends taking strategic breaks then. Relax, step away, come back with fresh energy. It's about making it sustainable. Gentle persistence so learning stays enjoyable, a habit, not this source of constant stress that leads to burnout.
Okay, so patience and kindness form the base. How do you give structure to that persistence? The sources mention focus and goal setting.
Right. Goals are essential because they give you direction, something to aim for, motivation. But, and this is the crucial part, they need to be manageable and specific. Small wins.
Not become fluent in 6 months.
Definitely not. More like, commit to learning 5 new words today, or read 1 full page of an English book no matter how slowly. Start small.
And the sources gave examples of this building up.
Yeah, a great progression. Someone started with a really achievable goal, like mastering maybe 10 new words a week. Then once they felt comfortable with that, they aimed higher, maybe read a short book in English, even if it meant looking up tons of words. Reaching those small, realistic goals is key because that feeling of accomplishment, it builds genuine happiness, sure, but more importantly, it builds real confidence. You start to actually believe, hey, I can do this. Fluency is possible for me.
Makes sense. And achieving those goals relies on memory, which means review and repetition must be vital.
Absolutely critical. It's just not enough to encounter a word or a grammar point once. The sources really push for a systematic approach. Regularly review your notes. Reread things you wrote earlier, which is also great for seeing how far you've come. Listen to the same stories or podcasts again after a week or two. That repetition is what builds memory durability. It moves knowledge from just, I vaguely remember seeing that, to, I can use this automatically. That's fluency, really.
And with so much to learn, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, skills, how do you avoid feeling overwhelmed? The sources suggested focusing on one thing at a time.
Yes, strongly advised. Don't try to juggle everything at once in a single study session. It's just too much for the brain. Instead, dedicate specific time slots or even specific days to particular skills. Maybe Monday night is for drilling new vocabulary with flashcards. Tuesday is your speaking practice session with an exchange partner. Taking it one deliberate step at a time makes the huge task feel much more manageable, prevents that cognitive overload feeling.
Okay, now this feels like the really advanced stage, getting English inside your head. Actually thinking in English.
Yeah, that's kind of the peak, isn't it? Moving beyond that often slow, painful process of translating everything in your head from your native language into English before you can speak.
Why is forcing yourself to think directly in English so effective? What's the mechanism there?
It's about neurological efficiency, essentially. When you translate, you're constantly switching between 2 different language systems in your brain. That takes time and mental energy, slows everything down, your thoughts, your speech. But when you make a conscious effort to think directly in English, even for simple internal thoughts like, okay, I'm feeling a bit tired now, or, I could really use a coffee, you start building direct links.
Bypassing the translation step.
Exactly. The English word coffee starts to connect directly to the image and feeling of coffee, without having to go through your native word first. If you keep practicing this consistently, even for simple thoughts, eventually forming sentences in English becomes much more automatic, much quicker. That's a real sign of fluency.
And all of this, every strategy we've discussed seems to hinge on one single factor: consistency.
Absolutely. The sources state it so clearly. Study a little bit every single day, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. That consistency is what transforms occasional effort into a solid, reliable habit. And that habit is what drives improvement and helps you reach your goals. 10 minutes every day is far, far more valuable than trying to cram for 4 hours once a week.
Keeps the momentum going.
And keeps it manageable. And maybe the most enjoyable tip, but one that's often missed: celebrate progress.
How so?
The material really encourages making this a deliberate ritual. Every achievement, no matter how small it seems successfully, using a new phrase in a chat, finishing a chapter of a book, understanding a difficult podcast segment, acknowledge it, celebrate it. They literally suggest rewarding yourself. Have a piece of cake, watch a movie you love, something tangible. That positive reinforcement makes the journey feel fun, keeps you motivated, and makes you look forward to the next little win.
That ties into making the process itself enjoyable too, right? The idea of creativity and joy in learning.
Yes. Don't let it become a chore. The sources encourage making practice fun. Sing along to English songs. Try making up silly little stories or poems using your new words. That kind of creative play forces you to manipulate the language in a really personal, low-stakes way. It makes grammar and vocabulary stick much better than just memorizing rules.
And using visuals.
Definitely. Use multisensory learning. Draw pictures to remember tricky abstract words. Use diagrams or charts to map out grammar concepts if that helps you. And always be willing to try new things. Found a podcast on a weird topic you like? Listen to it. Want to try writing a short fictional story? Go for it. Maybe try role-playing different scenarios in English. Being open to new ways to practice keeps it fresh, stops it from getting boring or stagnant.
And that fantastic anecdote about immediate application learning the word beautiful.
Ah, yes. And then deciding to use it to describe absolutely everything they saw for the next week. Their breakfast, the sky, a flower.
That seems like the ultimate takeaway, really. Use it or lose it, but more like use it immediately to make it stick.
It's the fastest track. Immediate application forces your brain to retrieve the word and use it in a real meaningful context right away. That cements it.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What's the core message from this deep dive into the source material?
I think the core message is that learning English shouldn't feel like this heavy burden of rules and memorization. It's presented much more as an adventure. Every new word is like finding a little treasure. Every sentence you manage to put together is like paving a new path forward. And the sources constantly remind us that structure helps keeping notes, maybe a list of words you're actively working on, having some kind of schedule. That organization is important. But it's that structure combined with constant curiosity and, crucially, the willingness to make mistakes and learn from them that really forms the blueprint for success.
Right. So if we had to pick, say, the 3 most compelling, most immediate strategies someone listening could implement, like today, to start making English their habit, what would they be?
Okay, 3 immediate takeaways. First, consciously change how you view mistakes. See them as essential teachers, not something to fear. Actively embrace them.
Number 1, reframe mistakes.
Second, systematically use the technology you already have. Start by changing your phone language to English. Create that passive, unavoidable immersion in your daily life.
Number 2, use your tech for immersion.
And third, apply what you learn immediately and celebrate every tiny success. Did you learn a new adjective? Use it to describe your breakfast. Did you manage a short chat? Give yourself a pat on the back, maybe literally. Make it real, make it rewarding.
Number 3, apply immediately and celebrate. Got it.
And you know, the source material ends with this lovely metaphor. It likens learning English to planting a garden. It needs patience, consistent care, but it grows beautifully over time. And if we extend that metaphor, gardening involves adjusting your plans, right? Sometimes you need to prune things back. Sometimes you need to give plants more space, maybe even replant something if it's not thriving. You revisit and revise your goals.
Ah, so it connects back to goal setting.
Exactly. It means you constantly need to look at your learning goals and adjust them as you progress. Maybe make a goal bigger if you're finding it easy, maybe make it smaller, or even scrap a particular approach entirely if it's not working so you can build a stronger foundation elsewhere.
Which leads us to a final thought, a question for you, the listener, to take away. If you were to look at your current English learning goals right now, honestly, what's one thing you'd decide to make either bigger, smaller, or maybe just get rid of completely to make sure your learning garden keeps growing, keeps flourishing?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Keep planting those seeds every single day. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cutting straight through the noise around language learning, our mission, to really distill the most effective ways to learn English based on the source material we've got. We want to give you a blueprint, basically, show you why these methods actually work.
Right. And what really jumped out immediately is this core idea that learning English, it doesn't have to be this huge, painful task, if you approach it the right way, of course.
Exactly. Like that anecdote in the sources about the fear, that feeling of being totally overwhelmed at the start
Mm.
and how it was overcome not by like intense grammar study, but just by starting to listening to stories every day.
Yeah, until the words just started to click, to
Yeah.
become clear. That daily listening, it just dismantled the fear, didn't it?
It really did.
And that's the fascinating part, how the sources point to listening as the entry point. Of course, you need all four skills: listening, speaking, reading, writing. But listening, well, it seems to be key for lowering that initial barrier, that
Okay.
fear.
It primes the pump, so to speak.
Precisely. It gets your brain ready to notice sounds, words, how things are used, before you even have to say anything yourself.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, like loading the software first. So let's dive into the practical stuff then. Building those four pillars, starting with listening and speaking,
Mhm.
the output skills.
Yes, and the sources are really clear on this. Daily listening is non-negotiable every single day.
Every day, maximize that exposure. Stories, songs, news, whatever you can get. It's not just about picking up new words.
It's more than vocabulary.
Much more. It's about internalizing the rhythm, the melody of the language, the pronunciation. You're basically training your ears.
Okay, training your ears.
Mm.
But then, how do you make that jump from just listening to actually, speaking? That's where the panic sets in for a lot of people, right?
It is. And the sources say the goal of practice isn't just being perfect. It's about making it automatic.
Automaticity. Okay. Yeah, reducing the mental effort it takes just to form a basic sentence. So your brain has space for, more complex ideas. And yes, you absolutely have to tackle that fear of speaking.
Because mistakes are okay. They're more than okay. The sources literally say mistakes help you learn. If you're not making any mistakes, well, maybe you're not pushing yourself enough. That's such a crucial mindset shift. And you need people to help with that, don't you? Like that story about the practice partner, the friend who was fluent.
That was a great example.
They talked every day, and the friend would just gently correct the mistakes right away.
That immediate feedback is gold. It stops bad habits from setting in. Really invaluable.
So find a friend or a language partner. What about practicing alone?
Ah, yes. Repetition. But structured repetition. Don't just learn a new phrase. Say it out loud. Repeat it until it feels easy, natural.
Like building muscle memory for your mouth.
Exactly that. It's
Oh.
physical. And that physical act builds confidence for when you speak to others.
Okay, so that covers listening and speaking. What about the other side? Reading and writing. The input and processing skills.
Right. So for reading, the advice isn't necessarily, dive into complex literature straight away.
No Shakespeare on day one.
Probably not. The goal is exposure to common words. So start simple. Books with pictures can help with context.
Makes sense.
It's about seeing those most frequent words, maybe the top 1,000 or 2,000, over and over again in a story you can actually follow. You absorb them more naturally that way?
Yeah, less stopping to look things up. Keep the flow going. I like that anecdote about learning words from a kid's story about a lost cat. Sounds simple, but it's the volume, right?
It's the volume and the repetition. And that leads us nicely into writing.
The processing part.
Yeah. When you write, you're forced to pull out the words you know and actually put them together. It shines a light on where the gaps are.
So how do you start with writing? What's the advice?
Again, start small. Keep it simple. Write about your day, your family, what you dreamt about.
Like that example of keeping a small notebook. Writing about school, friends.
Exactly. And the person admitted, look, I made tons of mistakes. But just the act of writing regularly, consistently, that built their confidence way up. Forget perfect grammar at the start. Just write.
Consistency over perfection. Got it.
So once you've got these sort of foundational habits going across the four skills, the sources then push you towards, well, deeper immersion and using the language creatively.
This is where it stops feeling like studying, right?
Hopefully. This is where you start living in English, even just a little bit each day.
And using entertainment. That sounds fun. Watching English videos, cartoons, movies.
Absolutely key, because you hear how people really talk. The speed, the slang, the everyday stuff that the textbooks often miss.
Like that funny dog cartoon example they mentioned. You're laughing, but your brain's busy learning.
It's stealth learning. And it all ties into this idea of total immersion, surrounding yourself, music, movies, signs.
What about that tip? Changing your phone language. That sounds brave.
It is. It's a big commitment. And yeah, it'll probably be annoying for the first week. But think about it. You use your phone constantly. You're guaranteed to learn new practical words every single day. It forces the issue.
Okay, that's a powerful one, a forcing function, like you said. And then there's the mental side. Thinking in English.
The think and use strategy, yes.
Yeah.
Trying to actually form your thoughts in English.
Wow. That sounds hard at first, like constantly translating in your head.
It takes serious effort initially,
Yeah.
no doubt. But the sources promise, if you stick with it, that translation step, it gradually fades. You just start thinking in English.
And then you have to use it right away.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Don't just think it or learn it, use it. Use what you learn right away. That's the advice.
Solidify the pathway in your brain.
Precisely. Like that example, remember, learning the word beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And then describing everything as beautiful, the sky, the flowers.
Even breakfast. Using it over and over right then and there. That locks it into your memory much better than just, say, writing it down once.
Okay. Use it or lose it, basically. What about extra tools? Apps, games?
Yeah, the sources definitely mention those too. Online resources, websites, apps with quizzes. They make it interactive, more like a game. Visual aids help too, like pictures or charts. And actual games, word puzzles, things like that. Great for vocabulary without feeling like hard work.
So lots of practical strategies, but none of it works without the right mindset, does it?
That's the foundation for everything else, really. The mindset of success. It boils down to consistency and patience.
The long game.
It's a marathon, like we said earlier, not a sprint. You just have to be patient with yourself. And remember, every little bit counts. Every small step counts.
And taking breaks. That was mentioned too. Crucial. You will get tired. You will get frustrated. It's normal. The advice is step away, relax, come back fresh. It stops you from burning out and keeps it feeling positive. Okay, so patience, consistency. How do you stay consistent? That's the tricky part.
Setting small, achievable goals. That seems to be the key. Not huge, vague goals like, I'll be fluent soon.
More like, I'll learn 5 new words today.
Exactly, or I'll read 1 page of this book. The source example was starting with just 10 new words a week. Hitting those small targets, it feels good. It shows you're actually making progress.
Measurable progress.
Which ties into the idea of review. Regularly look back at your notes, your old writing attempts. Maybe listen to the same story again.
Why? Just for memorization.
Partly, yes, it helps things stick. But more importantly, it lets you see how far you've come. You look back at something you wrote a month ago and think, wow, I know so much more now. That's incredibly motivating.
Seeing your own improvement, that makes sense. And what about just being kind to yourself through the process?
So important. The sources really stress this. Stay positive. Don't beat yourself up when you get stuck. And definitely don't compare your progress to other people's. Everyone's journey is different. Focus on your own.
Yeah, the comparison trap is easy to fall into.
And finally, celebrate. This was fascinating. Celebrate every little win.
Even tiny things.
Absolutely. Learned a tricky word. Celebrate. Finish that simple book. Celebrate. Give yourself a little reward piece of cake. Watch a movie. Whatever works for you. It keeps it fun. Keeps you going.
Okay, so wrapping this up. This deep dive really points to an integrated approach. Start with listening to lower the fear.
Then jump into daily practice across all 4 skills. Listening, speaking, reading, writing.
Embrace that immersion. Maybe even change your phone language if you're brave.
And remember, mistakes are good. They're teachers.
Set those small daily goals. Review your progress.
And celebrate every single win, no matter how small.
It really paints a clear picture.
And that final metaphor from the sources kind of sums it all up beautifully, doesn't it? Learning English is like planting a garden.
Right. Every word you learn is like a seed.
And every sentence you form is like a blooming flower.
Yeah.
It just takes that consistent care, those small daily actions. Your garden will grow. That's a really lovely way to think about it. Action-oriented. So as we finish, here's that final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. The sources remind us that the real beauty isn't just getting to the end, being fluent. It's in the journey itself, enjoying the process.
Exactly. So if learning is an adventure, what little treasures, what new words or phrases are you going to actively look for today? And how are you going to use them right away to make your adventure more exciting?